we got to the point where we were talking about Hadith as two parts, the narrators and the text of the Hadith. And it's quite interesting that a lot of work was actually done on how each narrator got this Hadith. Was it through writing? Was it he heard something, and so on and so forth? It's quite interesting that the word used for getting a Hadith is its literal meaning from Arabic is actually to bear a heavy burden, which signifies the fact that the person who was told a saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had a very heavy burden of communicating that to those people who came after. And they've actually documented how each different person got a Hadith. Did he get it from the Holy Prophet? Did he get it in writing? What other way did he get it? And so on and so forth. But then they set up conditions for these narrators of Hadith. So they said, we'll only accept a Hadith from a person as being authentic if he fulfills these conditions. And the first condition was that that person must be a Muslim. Now the reason for that is obvious. There were many non-Muslims who were trying to introduce their own ideas into Islam. And later on, many years later on, after books and things had been compiled, some people tried to fabricate hadiths about the coming of the Mahdi and all this kind of thing. So to avoid that danger, the first condition was that a person must be Muslim. And then that took them one step further. Well, okay, at this time, he's a Muslim, but what about the time when he heard this hadith? Was he a Muslim at that time? Because obviously, a Muslim, when Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says something or said something, a Muslim would pay greater attention to it. He would try and remember it. If it's an instruction, he would try and abide by it. And someone who's not a Muslim would have nothing to gain by actually trying to remember the exact words of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He's got nothing to gain by paying it a lot of attention and so on. So they said, okay, that's a distinction we'll make. When he heard these words from the Holy Prophet Muhammad, was he a Muslim at that time or not? And some ahadith, which are of a general kind, are accepted. For example, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, when he did business, he had a partner. Many years later, that man embraced Islam. And after embracing Islam, he stood up and he said to people, "O people, I bear witness that I was a partner and that the Holy Prophet Muhammad never tricked me, he never cheated me, and he was an upright and honest person," and so on and so forth. Now, because this was in general terms, it wasn't a specific instruction, how to pray, how to give zakat or fast and so on. This has been accepted. Then another question arose: what was the age of the person at which the Holy Prophet said these things? Well, you remember the meticulousness with which the history has been preserved. For example, we have who was the first person, who was the first man, adult, to embrace Islam, who was the first adult female to embrace Islam, who was the first child to embrace Islam. And all this has been preserved in meticulous detail. So people, the compilers of Hadith Muhaddithin said, okay, what is the age of the person when he says that the Holy Prophet Muhammad said this? I mean, for example, a lot of history comes to us from Hazrat Ali, who was a cousin of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, spent a lot of time with him, but he was a youngster at that time. A lot of knowledge of Quran and Hadith comes to us from Hazrat Ibn Abbas, who was another cousin of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. But at the time that the Holy Prophet passed away, Hazrat Ibn Abbas was a teenager. He was about 13 or something like that at the time that the Prophet passed on from this world. And I shouldn't think that although it was 1500 years ago, I shouldn't think that the nature of teenagers has actually changed in all this time. So the question the Muhaddiseen had to ask was, how serious was this youngster when he was listening to the Holy Prophet? How much attention did he pay to him? So you can see how much care they were taking with anyone who said that the Holy Prophet told me these things. Then another standard they had, another condition that these people had to fulfill was, it was called adalat. It literally means the court. Meaning, would this person's evidence, if he gave this evidence in a court of law, would it be acceptable? Would a judge regard him, an independent judge, would he regard this person as an honest, truthful, upright person? If his evidence wasn't going to be acceptable in a court of law, then it was a non-starter. Muhaddiseen would not accept that this man was telling the truth about the hadith of the Holy Prophet. But they didn't stop there. That was the beginning, that this man's evidence must be acceptable in a court of law. But then they went further to check this man's honesty, his truthfulness, and so on and so forth, because they felt that the standard that needed to be applied wasn't the standard that will be acceptable to an ordinary court of law that was investigating, theft or whatever else. This was a question of preservation of the instructions and commandments of our beloved Prophet. So the person must be of a higher standing as far as truthfulness and honesty and so on are concerned. Another thing that they considered was how serious is this person in performing his religious duties. I mean, obviously people would sometime oversleep and miss Fajr prayer, or not be well and miss a day or two fasting and so on and so forth. But if a person wasn't serious about performance of his duties, about his prayers, about his zakat, about so on and so forth, they said, why would he remember the words of the Holy Prophet Muhammad so meticulously in such detail? Because if he is not concerned about, the duty imposed upon him by God, surely he is not going to be very serious about what the instructions that are given by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So a person had to be not only upright and honest and so on, but he also had to be diligent in the performance of his religious duties before his evidence could be accepted. But then the question arose about the person's intellectual ability and capabilities. Just because a person is very pious, just because he's very diligent and meticulous, just because he's honest and so on, doesn't mean to say that he has the understanding to, understanding to find out what the Holy Prophet Muhammad meant when he said something else, or he gave an instruction for people to follow. I have to stop here because it's 9 minutes and YouTube doesn't take on videos that are more than 10. So there's one part of it is left that I'll go through next week with you.